Elias Ward had always liked the early morning quiet more than anything else. Before the ranch hands woke up, before the animals stirred too loudly, before the town even thought about opening its eyes, he would slip away to the creek that ran along the far edge of his land. It was a peaceful place where the sound of water moving over smooth stones could wash away the weight of long days. The air smelled fresh there, and the old cottonwood trees bent slightly over the water, as if guarding a secret. Elias didn't tell many people about this spot because it was his escape. The one place where he didn't have to think about bills, weather, missing cattle, or anything else that demanded a rancher's attention. On that morning, the sky still carried the faint colors of dawn. Pale pink and soft gold touched the horizon, and Elias walked slowly, enjoying the cool air on his face. He carried only a canteen and a small bundle of food, because he planned to sit near the creek for a while. His boots made soft sounds on the dirt path, and a few birds hopped along branches above him, shaking dew from leaves. He reached the creek and stood still for a moment, letting the calm settle around him. Then, something unusual caught his attention. The sound was too controlled, too careful, unlike the movements of an animal. Someone was there. Elias paused, listening closely. Years of ranch life had taught him to pay attention to any change in the environment. He set his hand on the nearest tree, staying silent so he could hear better. There was definitely movement, just beyond a cluster of large rocks near the water. It was soft but tense, like someone trying not to be heard. At first, he thought it might be a calf that wandered too far, or a traveler who had lost their way. But as he took a step closer, another sound reached him, the low, quick breathing of a person. And it wasn't steady. It sounded strained, maybe frightened. Elias didn't rush. He knew startling someone in the wild could lead to trouble. He cleared his throat softly and said, "Hello? Is someone there?" His voice was calm, low, and not threatening. No reply came, but the breathing changed slightly. Whoever was hiding heard him. He took one slow step forward, then another. When he reached the rocks, he leaned to the side so he could see behind them. That was when he froze, not from fear but from surprise so sharp it stole his breath for a moment. A young Apache woman crouched there, her back pressed against the stone, as if she was trying to disappear into it. Her hair was long and tangled, and her clothes were dusty, as though she had been traveling for days. She looked exhausted, and her right arm had a strip of cloth tied around it as a makeshift bandage. Her eyes, deep and alert, fixed on Elias with a mixture of fear and stubborn strength. She did not look like someone planning to attack. She looked like someone who had been running for too long. Elias kept his hands visible and raised them slightly to show he meant no harm. "I didn't come to hurt you." She didn't move or speak, only watched him with careful eyes, as if waiting to see what kind of man he was. He noticed the way she sat, leaning heavily on one arm. She was hurt. She was tired. She hadn't eaten in a while. The signs were clear to him, too clear to ignore. And even though he knew he should be cautious, he also knew he couldn't walk away from someone in need. That wasn't the kind of man he was. He took off his canteen and slowly set it on a flat rock, close enough for her to reach, but far enough to show respect for her space. Then, he stepped back. "You can drink," he said quietly. "It's clean water. You look like you need it. If we have to waterside." For several seconds, nothing happened. Then, she moved slightly, her eyes still locked on his. When she finally reached for the canteen, her fingers trembled. She took a careful drink, almost as if she didn't trust her own body to accept the water. Elias felt relief wash through him. She was willing to accept help. That was a start. He waited until she finished and placed the canteen back where he had left it. "My name is Elias Ward," he said. "I live on the ranch not far from here. I won't tell anyone you're here. I can see you're scared. Still, she said nothing. But her expression softened just a little. She looked around nervously, clearly expecting danger to appear at any moment. Elias could tell she was not a threat. She was a frightened woman in need of safety. He slowly reached into his bundle of food and took out a small piece of bread and dried meat. He set them down the same way he had done with the canteen, close, but not too close. You can eat, if you want, he said. You don't owe me anything. This time, she hesitated longer. Hunger was stronger than fear, though, and after a few moments, she reached out and took the food. She ate slowly, carefully, as if she wasn't used to trusting anyone she didn't know. Elias watched her silently. He wasn't studying her like an object. He was trying to understand how she ended up here. It was clear she had been walking for a long time. Maybe days. Her clothes were torn, her face carried traces of fatigue, and the bandage on her arm looked old. She needed real care. After she finished eating, she finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Why help me? Her words were slow, as if she hadn't spoken to anyone for a long time. Elias shrugged lightly. Because you need help, he said. And because you're alone out here. Anyone would do the same. She looked at him more directly then, and he felt the weight of her gaze. It wasn't anger. It wasn't distrust. It was something deeper. Something fragile, like someone who had seen too much trouble too quickly. My name is Tala, she said quietly. Elias nodded. It's good to meet you, Tala. He didn't ask questions about where she came from or who she was running from. He could see asking too much would make her shut down again. She needed time. A breeze passed through the trees, and for a moment, the world seemed very still. Tala looked toward the trail behind the creek, the direction she had likely come from, and fear crossed her face again. It was clear someone might be looking for her, someone she did not want to find. Elias knew what that meant. He also knew the risks of helping someone who might be in trouble with soldiers or scouts. But he didn't care. He had never been the kind of man to leave someone defenseless. He couldn't do that now. Not when Tala looked like she might collapse at any moment. You're not safe out here, he said quietly. If you stay by the water, someone might pass by and see signs. I know a place not far from here where you can rest. It's an old shed near my ranch. Nobody goes there. Tala hesitated, studying him again. She wasn't quick to trust, and Elias respected that. But after a long moment, she gave a small nod. Not a full agreement, just a sign that she was willing to follow him for now. Elias gave her space, walking ahead but not too far, letting her keep her distance. As they moved through the trees, he kept checking to make sure she was still behind him. She walked slowly, her injury clear in every step. There were moments when she stumbled slightly, and he wanted to reach out, but he didn't. He understood she didn't want to be touched. Not yet. Maybe not ever. So he helped her by clearing the path, making sure she didn't trip, and walking at a gentle pace. When they finally reached the old shed behind the ranch, Elias opened the door carefully. The inside was dusty, but safe. There was an old cot, some blankets, and a small table. Tala stood in the doorway, unsure if she could trust even this quiet space. You can rest here, Elias said softly. Nobody comes around. If you need anything, just say the word. Tala stepped inside slowly, looking around with tired eyes. She whispered something that sounded like, "Thank you," though it was so soft he wasn't sure. Elias stood at the doorway for a moment longer, making sure she was comfortable. He didn't know her story yet, but he knew one thing clearly. This meeting at the creek was going to change something in his life. He could feel it deep inside. In a way, he couldn't explain. Then he stepped away from the shed, letting Tala have the quiet space she needed. But as he walked back toward the ranch, he kept thinking about those first moments by the water, about the fear in her eyes, the strength she still held, and the strange feeling that their paths were now connected in a way neither of them could have expected. Tala slept for a long time in the old shed, longer than Elias expected. She had curled up on the cot the moment she lay down, pulling one of the blankets around her as if her body finally understood it was safe enough to rest. Elias checked on her from a distance several times, never stepping inside unless she was awake. He didn't want to frighten her or make her feel watched. When he looked through the door, he saw how deeply she slept, and that told him enough about what her last few days must have been like. No one sleeps that heavily unless they've been running far too long. By late afternoon, she woke up slowly, blinking at the slanted sunlight that came through the cracks in the wooden wall. Elias was sitting on an overturned crate outside the shed, fixing a piece of rope. When he saw Tala step out, he put the rope down gently and stood up. He didn't walk directly toward her. He waited until she met his eyes and gave a small nod, showing she was comfortable enough to talk. "You slept almost the whole day," Elias said softly. "You must have been tired." Tala didn't speak at first. She looked at the ground and wrapped her arms around herself as if trying to warm her thoughts. "I haven't slept safe in many days," she finally murmured. "My body, it stopped fighting." Elias nodded. He understood more than she probably realized. "You're safe here," he said. "Nobody comes near this shed. It's almost forgotten." Tala looked around quietly. The place was simple but peaceful, hidden behind tall grass and old ranch fencing. She could tell it wasn't a trap. There was no fear in Elias, no strange look in his eyes. He was simply doing what felt right to him. He reached down and picked up a small plate he had prepared earlier. "I brought you some food," he said. "It's nothing fancy. Just bread, beans, and a little stew I warmed up." She hesitated only a moment before taking the plate. Hunger made the decision for her. She sat on a step outside the shed and ate slowly, tasting every bite as if her body needed to remember what real food felt like. Elias leaned against the side of the shed, giving her space. He didn't hover. He didn't push her to talk. He let the quiet rest between them, because he sensed that quiet was something she respected. After several minutes, when Tala seemed calmer, Elias finally asked in a gentle tone, "Do you want to tell me what happened?" "Only if you want to. I won't force anything from you." Tala paused mid-bite. Her fingers tightened around the plate. He noticed her shoulders become tense, as if old memories pressed heavily on her. But after a long silence, she took a slow breath and spoke. "I did not do anything wrong," she began, her voice low but steady. "But people think I did." Elias listened without interrupting. "In my camp," she continued, "there was trouble. A child wandered toward a group of angry traders. They were shouting at one of our warriors about an old argument. I saw the child. I ran to pull him away before he got hurt." Her voice wavered slightly, but she pushed through it. "The traders thought I was trying to attack them. The warrior thought I was interfering. Everyone saw something different. They all shouted. Someone fired a shot into the air. The child ran. The people blamed me." Elias felt a heavy weight settle in his chest. Not anger, just sadness that someone so gentle-looking had been caught in a storm of misunderstanding. "They said I caused the chaos," Tala whispered. "That I brought danger. My own people didn't believe me. The traders told soldiers I was violent. They called me a fugitive." She looked up at Elias then, her eyes holding more pain than fear. "I only tried to protect a child." Elias took in every word carefully, not judging, not questioning her honesty. "I believe you," he said softly, and he meant it. There was something about her voice that carried truth. Tala blinked, almost surprised. "Yes," he replied. "Your eyes don't lie. Your story doesn't twist to make yourself look perfect. You're just someone who got caught in a bad moment." A small breath left her, almost like relief. She didn't smile, but her expression softened. But Elias knew something else too. If soldiers or local riders were searching for her, They would eventually pass close to his ranch. News traveled fast in their small town, and any sign of an Apache woman running alone would make people assume the worst, no matter the truth. He glanced toward the distant hills. "They'll be looking for you," he said quietly. "Maybe already searching." He didn't say it to scare her, only to be honest. Tala nodded. "I know. They were close when I ran toward the creek. I heard horses. That's why I hid." Elias rubbed his hands on his jeans, thinking, "We need to keep you safe until we figure out what to do. You shouldn't travel alone right now. Not with riders patrolling." She looked up sharply, worry written all over her face. "I don't want to bring trouble to you." "You're not bringing trouble," he said firmly. "You're giving me the chance to do something decent." Tala stared at him as if he were a strange kind of man she didn't understand. "Why help me?" she asked again. Elias took a slow breath. "Because you deserve it. Because you're tired, injured, and alone. And because walking away from someone who needs help would make me feel ashamed." He paused. "And because I know what it looks like when someone tells the truth from their heart." She looked down then, but he could see the way her shoulders relaxed just a little. Trust didn't come easy for her, but it was beginning. The sun dipped lower, turning the sky warm with orange and pale red. Elias offered her more water and checked the bandage on her arm from a distance. "It needs cleaning," he said. "If you let me, I can bring some clean cloth and warm water, only if you're comfortable with it." Tala hesitated, then nodded slowly. "You may help, but no touching," she said quietly. "Not yet." "I understand," Elias replied. And he truly did. He walked back to his house to gather supplies. Tala watched him go, her mind racing with confusing feelings. She didn't know this man, yet she felt safe. Not trapped, not used, not judged. Safe in a quiet, simple way she hadn't felt since she was a child. When Elias returned with warm water, cloth, and healing herbs, he set them down and backed away. "You can clean the wound yourself. I'll stay out here if you want privacy." Tala gave a small nod of gratitude. She cleaned her arm carefully, wincing at times but keeping steady. When she finished, she stepped outside again. "Thank you," she said softly. Her voice was more steady now. Elias smiled a little. "You're welcome." "What?" "You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome." For a while, they sat in silence as crickets began to chirp around them. The sky darkened, stars beginning to appear one by one. Tala watched the horizon with alert eyes, still expecting danger. Elias watched her, not in a curious way, but in a protective one. Finally, Tala spoke again, her tone quiet but honest. "I do not understand your kindness." "You don't have to," Elias replied. "Kindness doesn't always need a reason." But she shook her head. "In my world, people do not help without reason. They help if they want something in return." Elias looked at her with a calm expression. "Then, maybe this is your first time seeing kindness without a price." Tala looked away, her breath unsteady. She wasn't used to being seen as a human being first, before anything else. A moment later she said, "If riders come, I will run." Elias stepped closer, but still kept a respectful distance. "No. If riders come, we'll handle it together. You're not alone now." His words struck something deep inside her, something she didn't expect. She looked up at him slowly, studying his face. He wasn't joking. He wasn't trying to gain her trust for any hidden reason. He meant every word. That simple truth changed something inside her. Night settled fully around them. The old shed felt like a small island in a wide, uncertain world. Tala sat inside once more, wrapped in the blanket Elias had left. She felt safe enough to lie down again. Before she slept, she whispered softly, "Good night." Elias heard her from outside and replied, "Good night, Tala." When he walked back toward his home, he felt something stirring in him, something warm, protective, and strangely peaceful. Helping her didn't feel like a burden. It felt right. And even though he didn't know what the next days would bring, he knew one thing with absolute clarity. His life had begun to change the moment he found her by the creek. The next morning came quietly, but tension hung in the air like a thin, invisible thread. Before the sun rose fully, Elias walked to the shed with a calm expression, carrying breakfast for Tala. When he reached the door, he knocked softly so she would not be startled. Tala opened it slowly, her eyes still carrying the careful look of someone ready to run at any sudden sound. But when she saw him, her shoulders relaxed slightly. "I brought you something to eat," Elias said, handing her a small plate with eggs and bread. "I hope it's enough." "I hope it's enough." Tala took the plate with gentle hands, nodding in thanks. She didn't speak for a moment, but the way she looked at the food told Elias she appreciated it more than words could show. As she ate, Elias stood outside the shed, scanning the distant hills. Something inside him felt restless. He had slept lightly all night, listening for horses, footsteps, anything unusual. It wasn't fear, it was responsibility. He didn't want anyone to find Tala before he could help her. Tala noticed his distracted expression. "You are thinking about them," she said quietly. "Yeah," Elias admitted. "I'm thinking about the riders. They'll start searching wider today. If they come near this ranch, they'll see tracks." Tala lowered her gaze. "You should not hide me then. It will bring trouble to you." 2. Elias shook his head. "I told you before, you're not a burden. I'm not letting them take you when you didn't do anything wrong." Tala didn't argue again. But the way her eyes softened made Elias feel something warm inside. She trusted him, maybe not fully, but enough to stay close. After breakfast, Elias took her to a small stream behind the shed where she could wash her face and hands. She moved slowly, still careful of her arm, but she looked better, more awake, more steady. It was the first time he saw a hint of calm in her expression. But their moment of quiet didn't last long. Around mid-morning, Elias heard something that made his heart tighten. Hooves. Several of them. Approaching from the east, he gestured quickly for Tala to step back into the shed. She slipped inside silently, her posture alert, but controlled. Elias walked toward the front of his ranch, wiping his hands with a cloth to look busy. Within minutes, 3 riders appeared, 2 soldiers, and a local scout with them. Dust rose behind their horses like a faint cloud. "Morning, Ward," one of the soldiers called out as they stopped near the fence. "Morning," Elias replied calmly. Leaning on the fence, as if nothing unusual was happening, the soldiers removed their hats. "We're looking for an Apache woman," the scout said. "She ran off yesterday. Could be dangerous. Looks like she's headed this way." Elias kept his face still. "Haven't seen anyone," he said. "Just my livestock, and an empty morning." "She was last spotted near the creek," one soldier added. Elias shrugged lightly. "You can look around if you think you'll find something, but I haven't seen anyone." The scout leaned forward on his saddle, studying Elias. "If you see her, Ward, you better report it. Folks are on edge." "I understand," Elias said simply. They rode off, though slowly, scanning every corner of the ranch as they went. Elias stayed still until they were out of sight, then exhaled deeply. He knew they would come back. Riders never stopped searching after just one pass. He returned to the shed and knocked softly. Tala opened the door, her face tense. "They came close," she whispered. "Too close," Elias replied. "We need to move you." Tala stepped outside, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. "Where will we go?" "There's an old mining trail behind the hills," Elias said. "Almost nobody uses it anymore. It's narrow, rocky, but safe. They won't think to check there. Tala nodded slowly. I can walk, she said, though she looked uncertain. Elias watched her for a long moment. We'll go slow, he said gently. You tell me if you need to stop. Rumen. They walked through the tall grass behind the shed, staying close to the trees so they wouldn't be seen from a distance. Elias guided her quietly, making sure her steps stayed light on the ground. She was still weak, but she kept moving with determination, as if she had promised herself not to fall. The closer they got to the hills, the calmer Tala became. Trees grew thicker, and the sounds of the ranch faded behind them. When they reached the narrow entrance to the old mining trail, Elias stopped and looked back toward the ranch. If riders come again, they'll search the barns and sheds, he said. But they won't find any sign of you now. Tala followed him into the trail. The ground was rocky, but shaded by tall cliffs on each side. Sunlight reached them in thin strips. The air was cooler there, and the sound of distant water echoed softly. After walking for a while, Tala stumbled on a loose stone. Elias moved quickly, steadying her without grabbing her. Careful, he said. It gets steep around here. Tala breathed deeply, regaining her balance. I am not used to being this tired, she said quietly. You're doing fine, Elias replied. We'll stop soon. They found a small clearing with a fallen log, half covered in moss. Elias motioned for her to sit. She did, letting out a breath she had been holding for too long. I am slowing you down, she murmured. No, you're not, Elias said. We're not racing anyone. She looked up at him then, and for the first time, her eyes weren't filled with fear. They were filled with something softer, almost gratitude. But she didn't say the words. She didn't need to. They stayed in the clearing for several minutes. Elias listened to the quiet hum of the forest, while Tala closed her eyes, resting her injured arm against her lap. When she opened them again, she spoke suddenly, surprising him. You are risking everything for me. Elias met her gaze. Some things are worth risking for. Tala blinked slowly. You do not know me. You're right, Elias said. But I know enough. She didn't respond, but she watched him with a thoughtful expression, as if seeing him differently than before. In her world, trust wasn't given easily, but Elias Ward had somehow earned pieces of it without asking. They continued deeper into the trail. The rocks grew sharper, and at one point, they had to walk sideways along a narrow ledge. Elias went first, making sure the path was safe. Tala followed carefully, placing her feet exactly where he placed his. When they reached the other side, the trail widened again. Trees grew denser, offering thick cover. Elias stopped suddenly and raised his hand, signaling Tala to pause. She froze instantly. Voices. Not close, but close enough to make the air tighten. Elias pulled Tala behind a cluster of boulders. They ducked low, hidden by thick branches. Tala breathed quietly, barely moving. Elias listened, every muscle alert. 2 riders were passing near the ridge above them, their horses' hooves sending small rocks tumbling down. The voices carried faintly. Tracks head this way. We'll split up then. She can't get far. Elias's jaw tightened. He waited until the sounds faded, then looked at Tala. Her face showed calm outside, but he could see the worry in her eyes. We need to stay low, he whispered. Tala nodded. They moved again, even more careful now. Elias stayed close but still respected her space. Several times, they had to hide as riders passed above or below. Each time, Elias placed himself between Tala and the direction of danger, not touching her, but shielding her with his presence. After what felt like hours, the forest finally grew quiet again. When they reached a deeper section of the trail, where the land dipped and curved away from the search route, Elias stopped and let out a slow breath. We should be safe here for a while, he said. Tala looked around with slow, thoughtful eyes. You know this land well. I've walked these trails since I was a boy, he replied. I know the places people forget exist. Tala stepped a little closer, still keeping her respectful distance. Thank you, she said quietly. The words were simple, but the emotion behind them was deep. Elias smiled softly. You don't have to thank me. I'm just doing what feels right. But Tala shook her head gently. No. Many people do what feels easy. You do what is right. Her voice trembled slightly, not from fear, but from something deeper recognition of kindness she hadn't known in a long time. Elias didn't answer immediately. He simply looked at her with calm eyes, realizing how close they stood, how much trust she had placed in him without even meaning to. The forest around them was quiet, peaceful, almost sacred, and in that quiet moment, both of them understood something, without speaking it aloud. They were no longer just a rancher and a fugitive woman, running from danger. Their paths had joined in a way neither of them had planned. Elias pointed toward a hidden bend in the trail. We'll rest there tonight, he said. It's safe, and nobody will find us. Tala nodded softly. And as they continued walking side by side, the tension of danger slowly mixed with something gentler. Trust, connection, and the beginning of a bond neither had expected. Elias and Tala reached the hidden bend in the trail just as the evening sky began to deepen into soft shades of purple and blue. The narrow space was sheltered by large stones on one side and thick trees on the other. A small stream ran nearby, its gentle sound calming after hours of tension. Elias knew this place well. He had discovered it years ago while hunting, and had kept it in his mind as a safe spot if he ever needed quiet. He never imagined he would bring someone here, especially someone running for her life. Tala looked around slowly. The space felt peaceful, almost untouched by trouble. She let out a slow breath, and Elias noticed her shoulders relax for the first time since they started walking. She sat carefully on a smooth rock near the stream and dipped her fingers into the cool water. The simple feeling of clean water running over her hands made her smile faintly. A small, fragile smile, but real. Elias kept watch for a moment, scanning the distant trees for any sign of riders. Then he walked toward Tala with a small bundle of food he had packed earlier. It's not much, he said, handing it to her. But it should help keep your strength. Tala accepted it with quiet gratitude. She ate slowly, savoring each bite. It reminded her she was safe for a moment. Still hunted, but safe here, with him. After she finished, she rested her hands in her lap and looked at Elias. You have done so much, she said quietly. More than I could ever repay. You don't owe me anything, Elias replied. He sat down on the ground a few feet away from her, leaning his back against a tree. You didn't choose this trouble. It found you. Tala looked down. Her voice grew softer. Everyone turned against me so quickly. Even people who knew me since I was a child. Her words trembled slightly. It hurt more than the running. Elias understood. Sometimes the loneliness left deeper marks than any injury. People fear what they don't understand, he said gently. But that doesn't make you wrong. Tala lifted her gaze and studied him for a long, quiet moment. Why do you believe me so easily? She asked. Why trust someone like me? Because I see who you are, Elias replied. Not who they say you are. The answer surprised her. She wasn't used to being seen, not truly seen. Something warm and unfamiliar settled in her chest, and she looked away, before emotion could rise too clearly in her eyes. As night slowly wrapped around them, Elias gathered some dry pieces of wood and stacked them into a small fire. He lit it carefully, keeping the flame low so it wouldn't be seen from a distance. The soft glow spread across the hidden clearing, warming the air around them. Tala sat close enough to feel the warmth but far enough to keep her respectful distance. Elias didn't try to move closer or make her uncomfortable. He simply let the fire bridge the space between them. For a long time, they sat quietly, listening to the crackling wood and the gentle sounds of the forest. Tala watched the flames dance in the night air, her mind filled with memories, some painful, some hopeful, some newly born because of the man sitting nearby. Finally, she spoke again. "What will happen now?" she asked. "I cannot hide forever." Elias nodded slowly. He had been thinking about that too. "I have a friend in a nearby settlement," he said. "His name is Dr. Harris. He's fair, honest, and he knows many people, including some of the traders involved in what happened. If anyone can help clear your name, it's him." Tala listened carefully. Her face showed both hope and worry. "He will if I tell him the truth," Elias said. "And he knows I wouldn't lie about something like this." She gave a slow nod. It wasn't perfect safety, but it was a real path. A path she never thought she'd find. Elias looked up at the sky, the stars shining faintly above them. "We'll leave tomorrow morning," he said, "before the riders reach this area. It's a long walk, but once we get to Harris, you won't have to run anymore." Tala breathed deeply, letting those words settle inside her. Not running anymore. Not hiding. Not fearing every sound. The thought almost made her heart ache with longing. When she looked at Elias again, her eyes were softer than ever before. "You gave me something I thought I lost," she whispered. "Hope." Elias felt something shift inside him, something quiet but powerful. He didn't speak for a moment. He simply nodded, understanding what that meant. The night passed slowly. Tala slept near the warm fire, wrapped in a blanket Elias had given her. Elias stayed awake longer, watching the shadows between the trees, listening for any hidden danger. He stayed alert not because he feared for himself, but because he felt responsible. Protecting her had become natural, almost like breathing. By dawn, they resumed their journey. Tala's steps were steadier now, her strength returning little by little. Elias walked beside her, guiding her through the safest paths toward the settlement. The journey took several hours, but they finally saw the small buildings of the settlement through the trees. Tala paused, her breath catching. She was close to the truth now, close to the moment when her name might finally be cleared. Elias walked to Dr. Harris's door and knocked firmly. The doctor, an older man with kind eyes, opened the door and smiled. "Elias Ward," he said, surprised. "You don't usually visit this early." "We need help," Elias replied. He stepped aside so Harris could see Tala. Harris's expression grew serious immediately. "Come inside," he said quietly. They entered, and Tala sat down as Harris asked gentle questions. She told her story honestly, without blaming or hiding anything. Harris listened carefully, nodding slow and steady. When she finished, he looked at Elias. "I believe her," he said firmly, "and I know exactly who to speak to." He left immediately, going to meet the traders and the people who accused Tala. Elias and Tala waited in quiet tension. Minutes felt like hours. Then, the door opened. Harris walked in with a calm but satisfied expression. "It's done," he said. "The truth came out. The misunderstanding is cleared. You're free, Tala." Tala froze. Her breath trembled. She looked at Elias, her eyes filling with relief so deep it almost overwhelmed her. For the first time since he had found her by the creek, her face glowed with real peace. She slowly rose and stood in front of him. For a moment, she couldn't speak. She simply looked at him, seeing the man who had walked through danger, fear, and uncertainty with her, not for reward, not for praise, but because it was right. "Finally," she whispered. "Thank you for saving my life." Elias shook his head gently. "You saved yourself. I just helped you reach the truth." But Tala stepped a little closer, her voice soft. No. You gave me trust when no one else did. You gave me safety when I had none. You changed my life. Elias felt a warmth spread through him, not pride, but something deeper. Something that connected them silently. Harris gave them space, stepping outside to speak with townspeople. Elias and Tala walked out after him, standing under the open sky. The world felt new, lighter, brighter, hopeful. Tala looked at the road ahead, then back at Elias. Elias smiled. Back to my ranch, he said. Back to normal life. Tala hesitated. And, do you want to be alone? Elias looked at her, and she saw the answer in his eyes even before he spoke. Not anymore. Something gentle, quiet, and strong passed between them. No grand promises, no dramatic moments, just a deep understanding that their lives had changed forever the moment they met at the creek. Tala stepped closer, her voice almost a whisper. If you will allow it, I would like to stay near you. Not because I must, because I choose to. Elias nodded, his heart steady and full. I'd like that. They walked together down the road, no longer a fugitive and a rescuer, but two souls who had found something rare in a world filled with fear and misunderstanding. Trust, respect, and a bond stronger than anything they had expected. And as they moved forward, the creek where their story began stayed in their hearts. A quiet reminder of the moment that changed everything.